generally a little more conscious of time. Generally.
All right, guys, we are live.
Okay. So two. Good and live. Oh. Okay, nice. 105, right on time. Kick it off with just our typical intros. I'm Trent, one of the original launchers of YAM. Do a number of kind of operations-oriented things with YAM these days.
Hey guys, I'm Brock. I'm lead smart contract developer.
I'm Nate, helping out with smart contracts.
Hey, YAM fam, Fettis here, helping out with the Treasury Rage Quit YAM wall function, and glad to be here.
Hey guys, Chris here, helping out more and more with marketing and comms.
I'm Jim. I'm helping out with branding.
I'm Mick. I just talk about strategy a lot, probably more than I should.
Never too much strategy talk.
I'm Ross and I do the same.
Once again, Ross, definitely never too much strategy talk from you. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing the agenda for that screen. Okay, cool. I'm such a fool. Cool. We've got the introductions out of the way. Just start off with our usual governance discussion in terms of what happened last week, what we've got on the docket this week. The main big governance things we accomplished last week were getting the contributor vesting pool and the contributor monthly allowance governor on chain. So that vesting pool minted 720K balance of underlying YAMs to the vesting pool, which is going to be at YAM Governance's disposal to create specific vesting schedules for specific contributors. So as we kind of onboard our full-time contributors, we can give them long-term incentives and upside, with pretty customizable vesting schedules, which I think is a pretty cool piece of infrastructure and really critical for some of the long-term incentives of the protocol. And then along with that, there's also the kind of monthly allowance governor, contributor monthly. Just gonna add that in for clarity's sake. Which is basically a new governor contract that has the ability to access about 100,000 YUSD per month in order to cover various operational expenses like paying ongoing contributors. And so this governor has a lower quorum but a longer time lock, so it requires kind of less participation from the entire YAM governance community, but is still with the time lock and the guardian being YAM, kind of YAM big governance. The YAM community always still has oversight and the ability to override any decisions that that kind of smaller governor makes. So kind of just trying to balance our decision making in terms of like how much attention we need to be giving. Once we have consensus around, okay, this person is going to get, $5,000 a month. Not the entire YAM community needs to be monitoring each of those $5,000 monthly payments, is essentially the idea there. And then additionally with that, we've, the other piece of that on-chain proposal was the DPI/ETH index farming, which Brock just performed the execution to actually stake that a little bit ago. So we now are farming index, which is very exciting. We've obviously been working towards that for a long time, but sometimes these things just can move a little bit slow. So I think those farming incentives last through about December 9th or so. So we should get a solid 2.5 weeks of index farming in with about I think, Brock, what were the final numbers? I think it's probably about $300,000 of ETH and $300,000 of DPI, maybe even a little bit. Maybe even
Yeah, that's about correct. I can post the link for that as well.
Yeah, sweet. So that's exciting. It's a big treasury move. Always exciting to see those occur. Any questions on or comments on the contributor governance stuff or the index farming? We've also then in kind of upcoming governance, obviously in the past week we had this really productive conversation around the change in the rebase sell percentage. And so that was originally a proposal that was kind of all or nothing, 1% or keep it at 10%. In general, I think it's just better to have a proposal like that when possible, to use a weighted average such that everybody's voice is actually heard. That's not always the solution, but I think in this case, it ended up being really productive. We ended up right smack in the middle, which seems like an excellent compromise from the people who kind of anti that treasury purchase and those who are still a fan of it and like what it does for the protocol. So I'm pleased to see that result. And it also kind of goes to this sliding point proposal, which is currently active. The sliding point proposal, I don't really know exactly what it's hoping to achieve, and it's about a paragraph long. I can't imagine that it'll end up reaching quorum. And so it kind of ties into that original rebase sell percentage proposal, which was also quite short without a lot of rationale. In general, I think we just really want snapshot vote proposals to be, well thought out, well written, ideally in both English and Chinese. I think I really I like creating that as a standard. It's clear that the Chinese community is a really strong portion of the community. And so I think, on both sides, when the Chinese community is submitting a proposal and when the Western community is submitting a proposal, making sure that we've got both of those languages such that there's some better dialogue there. But my point there in general is that if you're submitting a proposal, you have a proposal that you want to submit, it of course needs to be discussed on the forum first. But when you want to actually transition it from the forum to Snapshot, don't be afraid to reach out to some of the contributors and get their opinions on the proposal and make sure that it's kind of well thought out and well researched enough to give the community the information they need to make an informed decision. I think that was my big critique of the sliding point proposal and the original rebase sell percentage proposal, is that, if someone hasn't been following along the Discord and on the forums, reading it all, they should still be able to go to the snapshot proposal and get a sense of what are the pros and cons and risks of the proposal that is put forward. Sorry for that long diatribe, but I think it's important. So two of the other things that we have upcoming in the YAM governance are the Great YAM Wall, which is a kind of new iteration of the rage quit function. And so we're going to discuss that in a little bit more detail later on. It was posted to Snapshot, but didn't reach quorum, I think largely because it just wasn't publicized enough that it was actually time to go vote on that. So I'm sure that'll get resubmitted. And then the YAM DAO set, basically just ensuring that kind of the guardrails and way in which we're managing that YAM DAO set are clear to everybody, and that everybody has buy-in on, you know, the concept and the exact way in which we're implementing the concept. And also have a broader discussion on it in a little bit, but that's progressing really nicely, and I think at a good point to put to Snapshot, get the you know, community consensus around it. Any other upcoming governance things I might have missed, things you want to see, anything of that nature? Excellent. So we'll just go into a little organizational update. Fedos and I have been working together to kind of fill out some of the necessary roles for existing contributors. And last week I had kind of a number of potential roles that we might want to fill. And we've been doing some work to kind of like group those together in various, you know, where it makes sense, particularly in this kind of general operations role, which is going to kind of be this, you know, contributor management, governance management, and just general internal coordination of you know, marketing, product development, things of that nature. And so, you know, whoever's that ops person in terms of, you know, what I was just talking about with some of the governance proposal, that's where they would come in on that to be a point person for, you know, hey, I want to submit this proposal. Do you want to give it a look over to see if it needs to be improved in any way, just so that we're maintaining a high standard of quality on the proposals. And then contributor management, internal coordination, those are pretty self-explanatory. Marketing, you know, obviously we've been making a little bit more of marketing push lately, and it, I think, just makes a lot of sense to have someone actually, you know, in that role, getting paid with some clear responsibilities, product, dev. So I think once we start to kind of fill out these departments with a mix of both full-time and part-time contributors, then I think it just gives a little bit more organizational structure that I think is still going to, you know, the goal is still have decentralization at the core, but just a little bit more leadership in terms of, you know, assessing needs and making sure that things are getting addressed appropriately, being a touch point for community members that want to get involved, things of that nature. So Fedos and I are working to kind of fill in those gaps with input from our existing contributors on where they want to kind of solidify their role a little bit, working tangentially on a budget in terms of how much, you know, we can be paying our full-time contributors and kind of what that looks like for, you know, a 6-12 month budget, all of which will then of course be posted to the forum for feedback. And you know, it's of course then a collaborative process to figure out, okay, what exactly is the best way to structure this, but just building up a little bit of a starting point is what we're going for at the moment. Any questions or things to add or concerns in that regard?
Question about, I guess, those contributor roles. Is that something that will be voted on individually by, like, with different governance proposals, or is it just going to be at the discretion of the contributor manager?
Yeah, so each role, each person filling a role especially if they're getting funds, getting compensation for that role will absolutely be kind of ratified by a forum process, kind of in line with this contributor compensation framework. Forum process, and then also a snapshot proposal. Again, one of the nice things about the contributor monthly allowance is that once we get consensus at the snapshot level, the on-chain stuff can be a little bit of a lighter lift for the community in terms of not everyone needs to be monitoring really closely what payments are going out specifically. But it's also about getting monthly reports for those ongoing contributors to be maximizing that transparency. Obviously, all the transactions will be posted and all of that. But yeah, it's definitely, all of it will still be ratified at some point via the token holders. Cool. Umbrella protocol update. We've got the roadmap here. Just as we've been talking about it, internally, we obviously got the Twitter set up and the introductory post out, the landing page and the light paper. So we're finally public with Umbrella protocol, which is really exciting, and seemed like people in the DeFi ecosystem were really excited about it. Nice to see number go up. But we still got a lot to continue delivering on, obviously. And it's a really, I think in general, pretty novel mechanism. The way I like to think about it is kind of like a balancer for insurance, in which anyone can create these pools. They can set the funding rates, the pool, the meta pool composition. And so it's a highly configurable system, especially at that point. And then we've got kind of the perpetual ERC20, the funding rates. It's a really unique approach to solving this kind of protection insurance problem. And so I think that we just want to actually test out some of the mechanisms before we go into audit mode. Because I think we definitely don't want to be spending, the $50,000 of an audit on something that, we're not exactly sure if every mechanism has product market fit. I think I'm really excited about the core of Umbrella protocol, and I want to make sure that all of the pieces that we've designed in the system are fitting together correctly to provide really valuable coverage and protection for DeFi users. So I think generally where we're at in the development, and I think Nate and Brock can give a little bit more info on this, but within the next week or so, getting a very small cap test implementation on mainnet that specifically within the YAM community itself can go interact with the mechanisms. We'll need to work with 0x on getting a kind of MVP front end together, and just starting to test it out and see what people think, see what questions start coming up. I can imagine some of them already that are going to be recurring. Just so that when we do go for a full rollout, that it's really in the best shape that it can be. Brock and Nate, do you guys have any dev updates in addition to kind of what I?
Yeah, I think we'll be good for my initial plan is to do like a 10K capped alpha that it'll be accessible through a yam.finance subdomain. We won't share that publicly. There won't be links. It'll just be in the Discord where you can click and you can go play around with it. We'll really be looking for feedback from people. If you understand how the mechanism works. I know we're all relatively close. That's why we're going to open it up to generally people in the Discord. And so, don't take all of the $10,000 of coverage. But yeah, I think we should be ready late next week to have that alpha ready. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, and so definitely keep up the discussion in the umbrella channel in the Discord, and I think we can continue to develop some of the ideas and messaging around it, because it is a fairly unique system, and so it's going to need some careful messaging and description about how to clearly communicate how the protocol is working in regards to particularly like this funding rate and the way in which you're depositing and all of these types of things. And then we've got the YAM DAO set updates. So I can let Fedis give any additional color here, but in general, we're continuing to coordinate with the set team. We have a call scheduled with them to kind of clear up the remaining things regarding what smart contracts YAM needs to develop in terms of managing the manager of the set, essentially. And so I don't imagine that that'll be a super heavy lift from a dev perspective, but that's one of the biggest roadblocks in terms of like getting this into kind of a production environment in the next couple weeks. And so along with that, as I said, once we have this snapshot proposal up, I also then want to get another Medium article out to kind of tell the world what we're doing in terms of the YAM DAO sets, get people excited about that. Get the fire department going by. Fedis, anything to add on that and kind of where we are in the process?
Thanks, Trent. Hi, everybody. So the process is moving along. Like Trent said, we do have a call coming up with the set team. If you guys haven't had a chance to read over the forum post that I put up about kind of the process that is going through, some of the decisions that we need to make once we're getting closer to the set being developed, please go on there and take a look. There's the link that's on there right now is the beginning. There's 2 more posts after that, and I'd love your feedback because ultimately this is going to be put up for a snapshot for the community. And if you guys get a chance, read it, look over it, ask me any questions on Discord. Krugman is primarily working on developing the initial assets that we're going to put inside. A lot of the assets that we currently have, like the Ethereum and the DPI, we're gonna move those over into the set so that they can be better managed, specifically risk managed, and then we're gonna be adding more stuff to it. So it's just all a work in progress. But go ahead and read over the forum post. That'll give you the clearest description so far.
Excellent. Any questions, comments from the Peanut Gallery regarding the DAO set? Cool. I'm really excited about that. I think it's going to be a really cool piece of infrastructure for us, and I think that we're definitely going to be kind of leading a trend in that regard.
Actually, let me add something to that. So the end goal of this is to make it a public-facing set so that other people can invest in it. YAM Treasury will be receiving some sort of streaming fee or some sort of fee from the set, we haven't completely decided on how we're going to do it. But it's important to note that this could potentially be a product for us that we can offer to the public. They can invest in it, and then the fees would go into the YAM treasury. So it's not only just about managing our own treasury, but it's allowing other people to come in and manage for us to manage their money, and we get a fee off of that, similar to how DPI works currently. Go ahead, Trent.
Yeah, it's gonna be quite interesting. It's really ends up kind of being an index on steroids, more closely related to like an actual fund that you would invest in that's, you know, in multiple different kind of investments for a general targeted risk adjusted return. So I think it's gonna be, you know, the product itself that gets pushed out into the world is also going to be a quite unique offering in DeFi currently, in terms of, you know, having ETH exposure, farming exposure, index exposure, kind of all wrapped into to one asset is something that does not currently exist, and is going to be pretty sweet, I think. So we've obviously seen a lot of index pushes in the last couple months, so we're taking it kind of even one step further, I think, which is awesome. Moving on to the Great Wall, which has been getting very spirited discussion in the Discord, a lot of really excellent ideas thrown around, and so can probably give Fedus the opportunity to give a basic explanation, and then maybe a little bit of technical perspective from Brock and Nate on how it would function. Would also potentially like to hear any other ideas regarding this Great Wall implementation. I know that it's, you know, we've gone a little bit back and forth in the Discord on whether this is the exact right implementation for this kind of functionality. So.
Yeah, thanks, Trent. So the Great Wall, the Great YAM Wall is the most recent iteration of Rage Quit that we've been talking about for a while. The issue that primarily prevented us from implementing a full Rage Quit was because we're using the treasury. So for example, we're using it for the YAM DAO set. We're also using it for Umbrella. It's hard to be able to take those assets out if something were to happen. So the full Rage Quit, you know, it was discussed a lot in the past, but it's not a function that we can reasonably implement. So this is the most recent iteration of it. I renamed it, or offered a name called the Great YAM Wall. Essentially, it does the same thing as a Rage Quit. It has the same purpose of as a Rage Quit, where it creates a price floor for YAM. So we set aside a pool of funds to be decided in the next couple of snapshots. We'll be deciding on this. So, you know, keep up to date if you guys want to be a part of it. But we create a pool of funds that's set aside to basically be a buyer of last resort. As soon as the price of YAM market cap kind of drops down, or so there's two different variables, the YAM market cap value, and there's also the YAM treasury value. So as soon as both of these items, either one moves up or one comes down, or both, once that happens, the Great YAM Wall can create a price floor and support the price so that it doesn't keep going down past the value of the treasury, which was originally the point of the Rage Quit. So the way that we do this is simple. We just, if it hits this point, if the price of YAM goes down below the value of the treasury, we buy. The treasury sets aside a pool of money to buy from the highest liquidity pool to bring it back up, to defend this price of YAM. So effectively creating a price floor. In general, that's just the basic functionality of it. How we go about doing that, I think Brock and Nate will go into it. But it's from what I gathered, it's a simple function that anybody can call. As soon as there's not enough, as soon as the price dips below that line, anybody can call a function to bring it back up, and set will basically utilize funds, or the function will utilize funds from the pool to buy the yams on the market. So, a lot of people, there's always a reoccurring question of, we basically pay, as YAM holders, we pay for the treasury. So what does the treasury do for us? So in this case, how does it support us? In this case, the Great YAM Wall, it's a protection to prevent the price of YAM from falling past a certain point. So this is directly used to support YAM holders. And that's basically, the point of the function. Is there any questions?
Yeah, and I guess the other thing I'll say is that the way in which it obviously accomplishes the same thing that Rage Quit does is that the Rage Quit function is meant to draw out your portion of the treasury pro rata for your YAMs. This only makes sense if the market cap is below the treasury value, such that you can get more for your YAMs. And so at every point when the market cap is above the treasury value, your best option for getting out of YAM is to sell your YAMs. And so what the Great Wall does is ensure that essentially if you want to get out of YAM, that it's always advantageous to just sell the YAMs as opposed to directly redeeming them for the treasury. So it's a fairly elegant solution to achieve the exact same end result of the Rage Quit, but through a different functionality.
Yeah, so we have, I've been posting up things on the forum. Pretty much everything that goes up for Snapshot, there's usually a forum post for. So if you guys, come into the middle of a conversation on Discord, sometimes there are a lot of things that happen beforehand that, you not necessarily see. The best place to get updates and to kind of keep up to date is the forum. So if you guys have any discussion or anything like that you think has a good point on Discord, throw it up on the forum as well. It's good for everybody. So in case, a week, 2 weeks down the road, we go back and we put up a snapshot for, what we should do for the Great YAM Wall, you can go back to the forum and look, even though that Discord chat and the conversation is already long gone.
%.
All right, back to you, Trent.
Any other general thoughts on the Great Wall? I guess I will just say that because there's still discussion going on, I don't think we've entirely said this is the route that we're going. Based on the fact that the market cap is so much higher than the treasury value right now, this isn't something that we need to get done tomorrow. We can kind of continue having these discussions, but I also think it's helpful to get consensus around it.
What are the risks of this mechanic as you see them? What's the potential downside?
Well, there's the YAM Wall will only have a certain amount of funds to draw from. So theoretically it could run out. But I have been doing some modeling as far as, if we put X amount of dollars in there, let's say 5% of our treasury into this pool, how much protection can it give us? And that post I just put up today, it's on the forums. But other than that, there's smart contract risk if things don't actually work the way that it's supposed to. There's, you have to calculate the value of YAM, the YAM market cap, which is easy, but how do you calculate the value of the YAM treasury? For example, if we have umbrella tokens in there, and there's no fair market value for it, we really can't include that into the calculation of the treasury value. So there are things like that we just have to work through, which, there's a solution for, which isn't a big deal. But we're going to try to make it so that there's nothing in the smart contract that can be easily gamed. We're going to be using the time-weighted TWAP, time-weighted average value? Time-weighted average price of the assets, so that, you can't flash loan something and then, and then mess around with a smart contract. Other than that, I don't know. Anybody else have any ideas?
Who would flash loan something like that?
Well, no, flash loan one of the assets inside of it, crash the asset, and then, initiate the wall to buy up a bunch of YAMs. That would be kind of an economic exploit that could happen, but obviously we know about it, so we're going to try to prevent that.
Yeah, that's really a great point. We should.
One of the things that I know, Fedis, you and I have been discussing a lot is like when this is most useful. And I think there's a discussion to be had about whether this is sort of a longer term thing, like a market downtrend that lasts, that is slower versus black swan that like crashes other prices and crashes this price. And my opinion on this is that if it's a black swan, we kind of don't want some freak event to be selling our treasury and then potentially have the price of YAM spike back up or something like that. And then we're left with a bunch of YAM in our treasury. Yes, we can sell it, but that's always going to be politically difficult, or potentially going to be politically difficult. So that's one thing that I'm not quite sure if I understand if there's a way that we can mitigate that, or maybe it doesn't matter, but I'd like to hear a bit more about it.
A good question, Ross. I wrote up a recent forum post for basically different scenarios that can happen where the Great YAM Wall would come into effect. And one of the effects is, one of the situations is, potentially a black swan event where the price dips really quickly and it naturally comes back up just because it's kind of a black swan event. In this case, we would be buying YAM if somebody, if the function is called in time. If the arbitrage bots gets to it before we do, then we won't be buying any YAMs. But if in the case where we do buy YAMs, number one, we're buying them at a low price. I don't necessarily think we can. Part of what we're going to do is to figure out what we do with these YAMs when we do buy them, if we do buy them. Hopefully the goal is never to actually use this function, but if we do by chance use it, okay, now we have some YAM. Which is in a bad position. It's not like, the YAMs are worthless. They are, valuable, especially if they've gone back up in price. But how do we, take out that value or use that value to our advantage? And that's something that we can discuss. We're not just going to sell it on the open market. Some ideas include, for example, let's just say we do have a bunch of YAM in the pool. When we go to a positive rebase in the future, instead of taking the YAMs out of the rebase amount, where the rebase would, if your wallet would go up by the rebase, but part of it goes to the treasury, instead of part of your wallet going up into the treasury, we would take the YAMs from the pool, and then sell it as we normally do. So in essence, it directly gives YAM to the holders of YAM. Instead of taking it out of the rebase, we don't take it out, so it goes right into your wallet. But the selling of the YAM is still the same function as it always has been. So there's no change in it. It just changes where the YAM comes from. That's one option. Other people have suggested options such as if you were holding YAM at the time where the Great YAM Wall had to be used, like we find some sort of incentive mechanism to reward you for basically holding instead of selling, which some people might do. There are plenty of options. I don't think holding YAM in the pool is a bad thing. It just depends on what we do with it.
Going back to the Black Swan, would it be possible to change the time weighted average price from Uniswap is variable, correct? Would it be possible to have a longer time weighted average price to mitigate shorter term fluctuations? So like if stuff's bad, it's been bad for a little while and that's when it sells.
Yeah, we can absolutely tune that parameter anywhere from 1 second to a week or longer.
What do we currently use for our rebase?
12 hour. But for OTC, we use 1 hour, and for farming, we use 1 hour.
Very cool. Yeah, that's an option as well to mitigate the damage of a Black Swan.
Yeah, but I now see your point regarding using a liquidity provision strategy for this, Ross, rather than just the YAM wall, in that would allow us to both ride the down and back up. If YAM price goes down, we as a liquidity provider start buying more YAM, decreasing the ETH held in our treasury, and then on the if we go back up in price, then we start selling that YAM programmatically and adding those funds back into the treasury. I think that for me crystallizes why we might go that route as opposed to this route, with the question of, okay, once we have the YAMs that we're purchasing the Great YAM Wall, what exactly do we do with those? Yeah, just nice for my own brain to finally fully grok that.
And there's part of, and this is, again, Fedis, we've had some really good discussions here and it's helped me think about this a lot. And I think when we were talking about like a hard floor versus a softer floor. And I do think we can kind of think about it like that, in that selling directly into the pool creates this harder floor that means that we're pushing that price, but we're going to be using all that ETH faster. And when we run out of it, that's basically when the floor breaks and you crash down to the next level. By putting the funds as an LP, as Trent mentioned, you get the opportunity to buy on the way up, but it also acts more like a net as opposed to a hard floor, where you are decreasing you're decreasing the slippage on the way down as opposed to like adding to positive slippage by buying back into the pool. So I do think we should be sort of thinking about that, what maybe the advantages of it are, and maybe in the end buying is the best way to do it and it's the simplest way to do it. But I do think there are trade-offs in both ways that we should be looking at and thinking about.
Yeah, I agree. The other option was, so in order to provide liquidity, you have to buy YAM. So in Uniswap, it's 50-50. The other option was to kind of combine both ideas as we buy YAMs at the wall, let's just say it's not a one-time, single spike event. As we buy YAMs, when you press the build the Great YAM Wall button on the site, and it buys YAMs, brings up the price, during that function, it also takes ETH and YAMS and combines it together and puts it into the LP, so that now it's even harder for the for the price to spike down. Because in order to provide to be an LP, you do have to buy the YAMS in the first place.
Yeah, let's go ahead and table this discussion for now. We can continue on the Discord and in the forum. But I think we want to get through UMA derivatives and keep in mind the time.
Sounds good.
For those of you listening though and watching, clearly we're still working out some of the details, and there's a lot of room for your feedback and insight and contributions as well. So hit up the Discord and the forum and everything, and weigh in if you feel strongly about the mechanics of this.
Yeah, I do actually think it's good. Fettis's idea of just merging the two concepts is quite interesting potentially. Yeah, I like that. Cool. So moving on to UMA derivatives. This is something I've just been discussing with the UMA team. They recently announced their developer mining program that you can see at the Medium link here, that's giving out 50,000 UMA per week to developers who are building financial contracts on their infrastructure. So these are pretty customizable contracts that utilize UMA's price identifiers, which act as kind of decentralized oracles. They can be really quite arbitrary in exactly what they're measuring. And so, one of the things that I've been discussing with them is just kind of generally the class of like on-chain metric derivatives. So kind of like gas price futures, total value locked derivatives, liquidations, volatility, exchange, Uniswap exchange volume. There are a number of really interesting things that you can do here that are one, just like interesting things to speculate on. I mean, like Uniswap exchange volume, for instance, on the ETH YAM pair, or total Uniswap exchange volume versus SushiSwap exchange volume. I think a lot of people would potentially be interested in those kind of speculative games, but they also actually provide some really interesting kind of hedging potential for the actors within those systems. So if you're an LP on Uniswap, you may in some ways want to hedge your liquidity provider fees with a derivative of that transaction volume. If you're a liquidator, you may want to offset some of your risks there. So I just think there are a number, and then for gas, it's like miners, just generally high throughput DeFi users. So I think there are a number of kind of interesting things going on there. And so the way the developer mining rewards work is that they are giving these 50K UMA in proportion to how much liquidity is in the financial contract that a developer makes. One of the reasons this is obviously a great fit for YAM in many ways is because we have a large treasury that we can go seed into those financial contracts and kind of instantly scale up the liquidity that whatever these derivatives have, whatever these derivatives are, how much liquidity they actually have in there. So it's, from our perspective, this kind of interesting blend of, traditional liquidity mining in terms of, getting a return on the capital that we deposit somewhere, but with the added element of we're building out, the derivative contracts, the interface, and then seeding that liquidity. And there's the potential to bake in fees to these contracts. So anyways, this is still pretty early stage, and in many ways just my pet project currently. But I wanted to share that it's something that's going on, and generally another quite interesting collaboration with a well-established project in the space, which I think is always a benefit to raising Yam's profile. So yeah, happy to answer questions on this if you're interested in the derivatives that I mentioned, or if you've got other examples of potentially interesting synthetic contracts. Would love to collaborate on that, get you hooked up with the UMA team, and yeah, I think that's a really interesting design space in which we can utilize contracts that are already audited and well maintained, to lighten some of the development work while still churning out a really high quality product.
Yeah, I think it seems like a cool idea. I'm excited just for us to explore more UMA derivatives and just explore that design space. I've talked before about decentralized Robinhood. I know stonks are not that sexy for degen apes, but I think a lot about normies, and I think a lot about like creating the infrastructure for normies. And so I'm excited about decentralized Robinhood, but potentially we could leverage a lot of the same contracts and get a lot of learning as we build maybe some of these other derivatives.
Yeah, 100%. It's an excellent point. Yeah, I think there is just generally a lot of value in terms of learning their system, because it is like extremely kind of customizable what exactly you can build in these kind of synthetic derivative contracts, and so it is a really huge design space from these on-chain derivatives, decentralized Robinhood, like really financially engineered weird exotic things that are honestly a little bit over my head, but theoretically possible. So yeah, it's a very cool design space. Cool. Well, again, very happy to answer any questions on that, and I'll kind of keep pushing on that. And if anybody wants to get involved with me, that would be great. But
I think you should create a channel. I think it'd be good to get a channel going and discussions can happen.
Yeah, right on. Will do. Cool. Well, that's those are the main pieces that I think we wanted to make sure we covered today. But we can also just open it up for a few minutes of open discussion, questions, any kind of outstanding things that people have on their mind.
So one thing that's really fun is today we have, I think we've hit a record of participants on this call. So welcome to everyone who joined in.
Number go up.
Yeah. So if there is anybody who has joined, who has a question, or wants to, bring anything up, feel free to chime in, because we really want to hear from everybody. But we just want to make that apparent to everybody.
And I do see one question in the YouTube chat regarding, are we going to sell off the index we farm, or are we planning to have some meta governance going on? Yeah, it is really meta governance, because now, like, with the index we farm, we could also like vote on Aave proposals and things like that. So there's multiple levels to this shit, which is quite fun. Currently the plan is certainly to, at least in my mind, no plans to sell the index that we gain. I think in general, as a kind of DeFi maximalist community that wants to promote not only our own community but also the broader ecosystem of DeFi, I personally believe that most of the things we farm we should hold. In terms of the meta governance, I think that's a conversation that we would need to have in terms of like, okay, we've got the index tokens that we can vote with. We also have Sushi that we'll be able to vote with. Do we need now kind of a new governor contract similar to the monthly allowance governor that is maybe still has the high quorum requirements, but it has it has a voting capacity. Voting only functions, right? But the time delay is like the whole process is like 12 hours long or something, where we can actually like effectively participate in other protocols governance in a timely manner. Yeah, just future discussions to have. The short answer is no plans to sell index currently.
Yeah, my quick 2 cents, I think, is if it's a yield generating asset, then we generally should hold it. If it's not going to be yield generating, I don't know that it makes all that much sense to hold it, because it being governance in and of by itself doesn't give it value if there's not the chance of getting revenue for EM holders. Otherwise, it's just EM holders being a burden actually on that governance system if we do hold it. But yeah, we can continue that conversation later. We got another question. Will YCP issue different governance token or use YAM? Currently, the plan is to have no governance associated with it, but we're going to see how this looks in the alpha. YAM is related in that it'll be the first arbiter accepted, and so YAM holders will be able to be the first arbiters, essentially. And you can vote on this, and that'll have its own governor and that sort of thing, like we do with our other governors.
So
is that
there's no sub-DAO token?
Right now, I believe that's what we've been saying. If that's changed, we can certainly, the thing is, okay, let's say we add one. I was talking with Trent about this earlier. There's currently no fee designation for a DAO token, right? It doesn't have the Uniswap style. Okay, at a later point, governance can vote to attribute fees to itself, right? We can add that, certainly. That's not a big lift. If we want to, it's not a big lift at all. This is just, go ahead.
It goes to the question of like, kind of what would be the role of that governance token, and making sure that we have a really clear idea of kind of like where that governance token ends up going. Is it just fee generation? Does that governance token end up becoming an arbiter for pools? Are they a creator of pools? Kind of where are we basically just transferring exactly what YAM does in terms of arbitering and creating pools to this new governance token? I think in general, like I'm pro having a sub-DAO on Umbrella. I think that's like pretty much inevitable, but I don't want to put the cart in front of the horse in terms of developing that token at this exact point in time. I think we've seen that in general. It's fairly reasonable to have a project, operate for at least a little bit before that gets implemented. But to your point, Brock, I think we should be having some capabilities for that eventual token. I think just in general, the answer, like, is there a governance token right now? The answer is no. Will there be one in the future? Probably.
Once you have a governance token, you can't unhave a governance token.
Yeah. I mean, I think that I agree it requires more discussion, and it's something that could happen further down the road. But the three main reasons why I see the value in a potential sub-DAO token is, one, to try to incentivize the network of Umbrella, right? To create the incentives in which people can come and participate and kind of bootstrap liquidity. Two, I think it can be used to incentivize development, incentivize core contributors, incentivize people who are excited about the space, protection protocols, insurance, like, I want to be involved. Boom, we've got a way in which we can compensate you directly for that project. And then three, for the YAM treasury, for us to have a percentage of those tokens and for us to kind of grow our book value. I know it might be illiquid to start, but still value's value, and we can kind of be growing the value. So even if we don't have all the answers on exactly how value will accrue, is there profit sharing or revenue sharing, and all of that we can discuss later. I still think those are some compelling reasons why to have a token related to Umbrella.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I do want to point out that, like, as soon as we have, if there's no governance token and YAM is the kind of deployer of the protocol and manages the protocol, it's like all of that value within the protocol then has no choice but to flow into YAM itself. As soon as we create a separate governance token for Umbrella, the value of Umbrella is going to go into the Umbrella token, which is not to say that
it's trying to find a balance. Yeah, no, I agree. Like, the risk is like Umbrella moons, and then all the YAM holders are left, behind, and totally, that's something to consider.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's not that hard to fix that. But I think, again, as I was saying with the, we're gonna go through some testing of this and make sure that it's all tuned up. I think the tokenomics of it will be part of that process over the the next several weeks of testing the protocol, getting it to the exact state that we want it, having it audited, and then including the token in that final version rollout. I think makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
My other random thought on the governance token thing is the idea of potentially we create sort of board elected multi-sig that has voting power of any governance tokens we have. Because one of the things I was hearing Brock say is that, like, particularly for these governance tokens, I think as a governance first organization, like, it feels counterintuitive. It feels not brand aligned for us to hold governance tokens without participating in governance. But do we necessarily need, like, all of YAM holders voting on a proposal for, SushiSwap or whatever? So creating a portion of the treasury that, like, a multi-sig of elective governance representatives have voting power with is, I think, a potentially interesting an interesting way to do that, or maybe we just delegate the governance tokens that we have to a specific individual. Hard to say. I'm just thinking.
We could do something like XSNX or XKNC, which when you buy it, you buy like a yes or a no. And for XKNC, you buy, if you're a like KNC holder, you buy it and it always votes to give more of the revenue to you. And if you're like a liquidity provider, you would buy KNCB and it always votes to give more like of the rewards to the different group. So it's like an algorithmic kind of thing. And we could then have like larger scale governance decisions. It's like, what is our stance on how we want to vote? And then it just like always votes that way. And then you sort of adjust a little bit as needed.
That's pretty cool.
Could you post links for that in somewhere, governance chat or something? Because
Yeah.
not sure I quite follow, but it is interesting.
Yeah, it reminds me of a Gauntlet piece that recently came out relating to feedback mechanisms.
So what I was going to say is Umbrella having a governance token does make some sense just for attacks on governance, because if it's YAM voting directly, then anyone that holds YAM obviously is able to vote. There might be some large but dormant wallets, or there might be large pieces of like large pools of liquidity that could be purchased very quickly for voting. And then having just a separate Umbrella token and some kind of staking or a time lock or snapshot, stuff like that, those can be done more easily with a separate token, at least conceptually, even if it ends up being that YAM has to be locked to get the Umbrella token, or YAM has to be burnt to get the Umbrella token, whatever mechanism you want to do there. And then that goes to multi-sig, it goes to whatever for the arbitration voting.
Yeah, I mean that is something that I think we need to be continually vigilant about, is the governance attacks. And currently we have a guardian on the YAM governor Alpha. And Brock and I were just talking about we're going to have a proposal in the next week to transfer that guardian, which is currently set to the deployer address, to probably like a 1 of 5 multi-sig that maybe 2 of 5, we'll discuss it in the forum, but just it'll decentralize that veto power a little bit, because that is really our kind of like main line of defense against malicious governance resulting from economic governance attack. But the more money we have kind of under control of YAM's governance through our treasury and through, the arbitration pools, like the potential profit that can be garnered through a governance attack is increased. So it's just something we want to be constantly mindful of and, actively guarding against. Cool. Well, is there anything else? We've done great on time here, folks. Just a little bit over an hour. Great conversation. Oh, live streaming in the Discord. Interesting idea. I don't know exactly what their capabilities are. I like the fact that we have this recorded and can reference it. I think that's the biggest thing. I don't know if we would be able to, in some way, download and re-upload.
One of us could share our screens with a little bit of work and probably rebroadcast into Discord.
There's probably a way to do it. It's a little convoluted. We can take a look though. Let's see what we can do.
Yeah, it could be fun.
But good suggestion.
Yeah, indeed.
Real quick, and we don't need to go into it now. We could probably have our own like a whole call dedicated to this, but we are starting to work more and more on marketing and coming up with a game plan for what that is going to look like. Part of the challenge there is really just ultimately, you know, our marketing needs change as, you know, as events like develop. You know, like Umbrella we just announced it. So, you know, that's going to require more and more marketing and publicity and comms. But then, you know, as other things like the Great Yam Wall come, you know, start to coalesce and we start to really nail down what that's going to be, like we're going to need more content for that, right? And then there's Yam proper and how that works. And so we kind of have a backlog of stuff that we are trying to get out. But it's very much on our minds and trying to really just be as strategic as we can, just because in the same way that we have at the moment, at least, you know, limited dev resources, we also have limited marketing and creative resources. So, you know, branding, copywriting, creative visual production, stuff like that. It all just takes time and people to do it. So if that is your skill set, you know, right now it's been a lot of Jim and myself, so designer and myself, and Chili, who has been contributing so many amazing graphic designs. So if you like what you're seeing graphic design wise, thank Chili on the Discord. He's amazing. But right now we've kind of been forming the sort of triumvirate of marketing as it's sort of moving forward. But if this is a skill set you have or something you're passionate about, reach out to us because we're going to need all of the hands on deck that we can get.
100%. Well, cool, gang. I think we can probably call it for the week. I'll obviously post this agenda and some notes into the forum so people can check that out, and I'll include the link to the call. Yeah, thanks for everybody.
Yeah, real quick, next week is a major US holiday, so we will not be having a call next week. If at least I will not be on the call. People are free to have a call. So anyways, just thought I'd throw that out there. I imagine a lot of the US based people will not be on. Yep.
Yes, we can discuss amongst ourselves if we want to have a call, but I think it probably will make sense to skip next week. Cool.
All right, guys, we're going to stop broadcasting, but if anyone has any more questions, obviously this will be up on our YouTube channel, and we'll post it in the forum. It's on Discord, all of that. So reach out with questions after the fact. If you heard something that you feel strongly about, or even something you don't feel strongly about, but you have ideas and want to contribute, please just provide as, or, you know, contribute as you feel capable. Because we want to hear from you. And everyone has a different perspective that brings value. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks all.
Thanks.